In this week's Torah portion, we learn about the infamous story of the spies going into the land of Israel and the disaster that ensued. Shalom, my friends. This is Akiva Gersh with Israel in 5, where we give you everything Israel in 5 minutes. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or want to keep the conversation going, please do so below in the comments. This week's Torah portion is named Shelach Lecha, which means send. And what happens at the very beginning of this Torah portion is that Moses, on behalf of the nation, sends out a team of the leaders of the different tribes of Israel into the land of Israel. Remember, they're not in the land of Israel. In fact, throughout the entire Torah, the 5 books of Moses, they don't go into the land of Israel. They only go into the land of Israel after Moses' death and at the very, very beginning of the book of Joshua. Now they're outside the land of Israel still, but they want to know what it's like in there. They're curious. They want more information, and they're a little scared, right? Remember, just recently they were slaves in Egypt for hundreds of years as a nation, and they had gotten freed with all these incredible miracles and wonders, but they still had fear inside of them. And so as they get closer to the land of Israel and as they go further on their journey, they're wondering, what is it going to be like in there? What are we going to have to do? Who are we going to meet? What are we going to have to be up against? And they had this idea to send in a team of spies. And this team of spies is made up of the leaders of each of the tribes. There's 12 members of this team. Each one of them is a leader of a different tribe. So it shows us their greatness and importance. And this team goes into the land of Israel for 40 days. They're sent in to spy out the land, to scout out the land, to report back about the land and the people living there, the cities, the towns. Are they big? Are they fortified? Are they strong? What are the trees like? What is the land like? All the information they can possibly get. And when they come back, basically a disaster happens. What happens? They tell the nation that, oh my God, the people there, they're huge. They're like giants. I don't think we can do it, right? They give a whole kind of like commentary on their experience, not just like delivering facts, but delivering an emotional interpretation of what they saw. And when they tell the nation that, I don't know, I'm not sure, this is going to be intense, I'm not sure we're going to be able to do this, they're big and scary in there, the nation breaks and the nation cries out and says, we don't want to do this. Basically, we want to go back to Egypt. And this moment is a real serious moment for the nation. It's a disaster. Because what happens and what this shows is that they're lacking the faith in God, right? That God will bring them in and God will help them to be successful and God will make it happen, that they will come into this land easily and successfully, and they will be able to settle into the land that God had told them about so many times over the years. And yet they broke down. They broke down because of their disbelief, their lack of faith, their lack of strong faith. And as a result, they're given a punishment, right? As a result, God basically sees, oh, they don't believe that they can go into this land. They don't believe that I can bring them into this land. So they won't go into this land. It's an intense moment. It's an intense punishment. They're given the punishment that they're not going to go into this land. This whole generation is going to have to wander around the desert for 40 years. That was not the original plan. You have to wander around the desert for 40 years, 1 year for each day that the spies were inside the land of Israel, scouting it out, until the whole generation, right, from 20 years old and up, will die out. And only the new young generation, they'll be the ones to go into the land of Israel. And why? What's the deeper teaching here? Is that while the nation was freed from physical slavery, they were still enslaved mentally. They still had the mental state, the mindset of slaves, that they couldn't do it. They couldn't rise up. They couldn't be strong. They couldn't overcome, right? And they lacked their faith not only in God, but in themselves as well. And on somehow that's the greatest disaster in the story, that they lacked this faith in themselves that God had for themselves, that God had for them. And as a result, God saw and understood in that moment, these people, this nation, those 20 and up, who were so deeply affected by the experience of slavery, understandably, but at the same time, God took them out in miracles and wonders, gave them a whole new reality. And with that, they could have, and they should have been able to kind of rewire their mindset based on those miracles and wonders and experiences that they had, but they didn't. And as a result, God said, okay, this is not the nation that can go into the land of Israel. This is not the nation that will be built up as the nation of Israel in the land of Israel. They'll die out in the desert, and the young generation will come in, and they'll be the ones to go in, the ones who are not enslaved mentally as a result of their physical slavery experience, and the ones who will be born into the world during these years of wandering around the desert for 40 years. I just want to add one more thing. It's really interesting. When they come back and report to the nation about what they saw and what they experienced in the land, they said like this. They said, like I mentioned, that they saw giants. They saw people who were like giant looking. And then they said this. They said, we were like grasshoppers in our eyes. That doesn't make sense. You would think that they would say we were like grasshoppers in their eyes. But they said, no, we're like grasshoppers in our eyes. And then the verse goes on to say, and therefore we were like grasshoppers in their eyes. And it shows you, it's a little bit of a slip on some level, that they let out that like we looked at ourselves as small, as incapable, as unable of rising to the challenge and overcoming this challenge and taking on this task. Right. And that was a real sign, a clear sign of their inner mental slavery that was still with them, that they just couldn't go into the land of Israel with. Right? So from this, we can really extract beautiful life lessons of having that belief in ourselves, knowing that God believes in us all the time. And that should inspire us to believe in ourselves and our own abilities, even when we face challenges, and we will. Right? But if we're facing a challenge, it means that we have the ability to overcome the challenge. Right? We have the ability to believe in ourselves. And that's the greatest gift we can give ourselves, and that's the greatest tool that we can use in our lives. And from this week's Torah portion, we really, really learn that, right? That is the most essential thing that we can really have in our lives in order to live our lives to the fullest and to really become who we're meant to be and do what we're meant to do, is to have that belief in our own abilities, have that belief in ourselves.